Hey there, Jeremy Weiss here with Weiss Tech Hockey, and from time to time I get questions about the swing regroup play that's diagrammed out in the coach's training course. So if you haven't already watched that video, I'll go ahead and put a link in the description of this video so you can go check that out. But I figured there's been a few questions come in recently, and so I figured maybe it would be good to do kind of a frequently asked questions video and sort of clarify up what the intent and how the swing regroup is designed to work, at least in my mind. So I'm going to show you kind of how we run it and how it has worked, when it works and when it doesn't work for the teams I've coached, and then hopefully it'll shed some light on kind of what the expectations are for the swing regroup. So let's go ahead. We'll pull up the rink. I'll kind of show you what we've got going on. Anytime that you're in a regroup situation, obviously, we've kind of drawn this out where we're at right now. But anytime you're in a regroup situation, generally what happened was the puck came out just outside your blue line, and instead of just firing it back in and having a delayed offside or whatever, it's obviously it's best to maintain control whenever possible. So we have our defenseman drag skate the puck. That means pull it back and towards the middle. And they're looking to go D to D as they're doing that because as the forwards peel out of the zone, there may be an opportunity for a quick break. Really quick point on drag skating. Drag skating is kind of the equivalent of a quarterback dropping back into the pocket after the snap. So the idea is you want to get back quickly and pull into the middle so that you've got more passing options available to you. And while you're doing that, you're reading A, where your forwards are, and B, where the pressure is. So you may need to go D to D, like I mentioned, but that's the purpose of drag skating. We call it drag skate. I call it drag skating. You may have a different terminology for that. But let's go ahead and we'll move into the actual play itself, the actual regroup. Now, anytime you're talking anything with systems, there's always there's the textbook version of it. So how it should look, if everything goes 100% perfect. But usually what I say is, hey, you need to know the textbook version of it, but then you also need to know what adaptations you may need to make, as the play is progressing on the ice. And sometimes it works out textbook and sometimes it doesn't. There's always improvisation that happens during the games. And that's where being a student of the game makes a lot of sense. That's where the smarter players do better because they understand what the objective is and they understand how to make adjustments along the way based on where the opposing players are, where your players are, and make those read and reactions. So let me draw out the textbook play of what the swing regroup should look like. As you can see, we've got 4 different receiving zones. Usually we call this one receiving zone 1. These 2 are receiving zones 2. And this one is receiving zone 3. So depending on which way the play swings, these are possible areas that you may receive the puck on the swing regroup. So basically what we're looking at is something like this. So we've got F1, we got F1, F2, and F3. F1 is the first player out of the zone in this instance. Okay, so the first thing F1's doing is he's going to swing through to and present himself as an option in the first receiving zone. So we're going to draw a little arrow, kind of keep it looking nice. But this is about where he'll be timing it, watching and waiting. If the defenseman mishandles a puck or whatever, he may need to adjust that route. But he's looking to present himself as an option in that first receiving zone. Now, sometimes he'll get it there, sometimes he won't. If he does get it there, then what I like to see happen is for him to continue wide, okay? And we've been talking a lot about this with my team this week. Driving wide forces their defensemen to make decisions, right? And that's, any chance you have possible, you want to force the other team to make a decision. If you're driving wide and with speed, then the decision is, for the defenseman, do I stay with this guy or do I let him go? Well, if he lets you go, you cut around him, drive to the net, and get a shot on net. If he stays with you, now you've just pulled their defenseman deep and wide, and you've opened up space either for a drop or a pass across or a drop pass. Okay, so if he gets it, he can accelerate through with speed. Depending on where F3 has gone, there may be a passing option to F3. But in this case, the way that we've got it drawn out, probably not, because F3 will be swinging through the opposite direction. Okay, so if F1 gets the pass in the first receiving zone, he should take it wide and drive the zone. Okay, a tendency for young players especially, or inexperienced players, is to get it here and immediately turn up ice. You turn up ice, you're turning into all the confusion. You're skating straight into the other team's defenseman, and it's just not nearly as effective of a possibility. I always coach percentage hockey. That's the big thing I'm preaching lately is player percentages. It's like Moneyball, right? Money hockey. You want to give yourself the best chance possible of scoring. So percentage scoring opportunities, percentage passes. Don't be trying to make the impossible pass or the impossible play. If you find yourself on a 1-on-2 situation, don't try to beat both defensemen. If you find yourself in a 1-on-2 situation, either cut to the middle and take the shot, or drive wide and then delay and wait for your reinforcements to come in. Okay, so that's a little bit off topic, but let's jump straight back into it. If F1 doesn't receive it in the first receiving zone, again, we're talking textbook here, and we're going to get into other variations as well. If he doesn't receive it in the first receiving zone, no problem. He's going to open himself up and present himself as an option again in the second receiving zone. You know what? I'm not going to use this arrow. It's not drawing it exactly the way I want it. So he's going to open up, present himself as an option again in the second receiving zone. I usually tell my players, I want you keeping your eye on the puck this whole time. So that may mean an inside reverse pivot halfway through so that he's still watching the puck. And as that happens, it may go D to D and then up to this, up to the second receiving zone, first man through, receiving it in the second receiving zone. Okay. Now, again, if he doesn't receive it here, the next option is to cut across the blue line, straddle the blue line, and present yourself as an option in the third receiving zone. Okay? Before I move forward, let me just say that the idea here isn't that the D are going to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and then eventually move the puck up. It's probably, in a real game situation, it's probably going to be 1 or 2 D to D passes, and then they've got to move it up ice. If they're sitting back, behind the play, just messing around with the puck, going back and forth, it's only a matter of time before it gets picked off, and then you've got a scoring opportunity against you. So it's 1 or 2 D to D passes, and then find an option, either receiving zone 1. So if it goes to this D, this is obviously a good passing angle, okay, for receiving zone 1. Okay, a better passing angle for receiving zone 2 is probably from this defenseman. Okay. And a good passing angle from receiving zone to receiving zone 3 would be from this defenseman as well. Okay, so one of the questions that's come up is, okay, well, this is all fine and dandy, but what if the D has to go D to D? Do the forwards change direction? The answer to that is no. They keep swinging through. If you swing properly, you've always got a passing option in at least 2 out of the 3 receiving zones. Okay, so that's the fundamental kind of setup here. Let me get rid of some of these arrows. Okay, and I'll take this one out of here as well, just so it doesn't get too confusing. So the idea is present yourself as an option 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. Okay, now as that's happening, F2 is doing the exact same thing, only about a line behind. Okay, so he's timing it, watching, waiting, and as F1 is coming into the second receiving zone, now F2 is busting through the first receiving zone. Okay, and I probably should have drawn that just a little bit deeper. But in fact, let me do that. I hate having arrows that don't really represent what I'm talking about here. So F2 is going to swing down, swing low, and present himself low. Okay? You got to get low on these. If you're trying to do your regroup, and especially on the swing regroup, if you guys don't swing low and then swing wide, you're just going to have a whole cluster in the middle here of guys just swinging around, and they're all going to be like within the face-off dot or within the face-off circle. So get wide, swing low. Okay, you're presenting yourself as an option in this receiving zone as F2 is presenting himself in the second receiving zone. Okay, now, and then the play continues as he's getting around in the corner into 3, then F2 is coming up into 2. Now, as this play is progressing, F3 is coming out and he's watching and waiting. Now, there's a few different options here. Okay, if the puck goes, so from this side, okay, so a lot of times you have 2 guys coming out one side and 1 guy coming out the other, okay? So in this case, if he's on the opposite side and he's the 3rd man out of the zone, his main probable option, because these aren't good passing angles, okay? If he's cutting across here, the puck isn't going to go from here to the middle, okay? And it's probably not likely to go, from here to here up to the middle. It's just not a real viable passing option. So if he's on the opposite side of the ice than the other 2 forwards and they're both swinging this way, he's going to time it out and watch for a possible break and become a stretch pass option, okay? And that, again, that's going to be the good passing angle from this one is probably going to be from this D, okay? So again, if you go D to D, okay, that's fine. That gives you some options on this side. You go D to D again, okay, that's great. That gives you this option, that gives you that option, okay? So it doesn't matter if it goes D to D. It's just a question of, which option is available and which passing angle makes the most sense. Now, let's give some other possible options here. What if F3 is actually coming out of the same side? So maybe you had one guy in front of the net, two guys in the corner in the hash marks or something, and at the end of the day, all three guys ended up peeling out of the same side. Well, that's where you can get a couple of these other options that filter in. And again, we're talking, here's the possibility of textbook. Okay, textbook is, it goes option, passing in lane 1 to 2, and then hit this guy in the, and let's actually draw that out before we talk about it here. Okay, so this guy will be delaying and then watching, waiting, and then exploding through timing his play. So if you're talking like a textbook regroup, it could go probably one of two ways. It would be a little pass here and then a quick touch up, and then as this guy picks it up, he's hitting the middle guy and that guy can split the D. Or what usually ends up happening, and this is what I prefer, if the D play it properly, I don't want you trying to split the D. I want you going wide around, and then this guy will be this guy will be F2 coming in wide, and then the guy that's furthest back will become F3, and you've got your triangle set up again. Okay? So that's how that works. Now, if he doesn't receive it here, this is the thing. F3 is he's got to make a decision. Does he want to present himself as an option for a breakaway stretch pass, or does he want to delay it and allow it to come out? And all that is just a question of read and react, okay? So if the puck is on this defenseman's stick and, one of the opposing defensemen is blowing a tire or whatever, and he wants to jump in and, let that D, exploit a stretch pass, then that's fine. He can time it that way. If he doesn't get it here, he just, continues to straddle the line, peel up, and then get ready to attack when the rest of his players come in. Okay? Or if that's just not looking like it's an option, then he'll slow down his arrival so that he's busting through that third receiving zone after this guy's picked up the puck here. Okay? So he's watching and waiting. As soon as he sees this guy's got the puck, then he busts through so that he can get a little touch pass up and then attack wide. Okay? So those are kind of like the textbook options. Now let's talk about a few other possibilities, because this doesn't always happen just exactly like you draw it up, right? Sometimes F1 and F2 are coming in from opposite sides of the ice, and that's fine. The whole premise of the swing regroup is fluidity and keeping players in motion. Okay, if you keep players in motion and you've got the good enough skill level to make it happen, keep players in motion and they're going to be attacking. It's a quicker transition and they're going to be attacking with speed, as opposed to, we talked about post-up regroup where the F1 swings low like we just talked about, and then F2 and F3 are just kind of posting up on the blue lines. That can work too. It just depends on what your team's style is, where your strengths and weaknesses are, and whether you're capable of, using a regroup like this to use speed to your advantage. So let's talk about this. Let's say F1 and F2, the first two guys out of the zone are coming out of opposite ends. No problem at all. You just swing through in opposite directions. Okay? So F1 is swinging through like this, and the timing isn't as critical on this because you'll have, you're not going to be running into each other. If the timing's off and they're both coming out of the same side, then F2 is too close in behind F1 and he's not a passing option because F1's in his way. If we're going this way, it's not as big a deal. So F2 can come out and he's swinging the opposite direction. Okay, present himself in both pass and receiving zones. Okay, and then F3 just comes out, same thing as before, delay a little bit, watch and wait, and then attack that third receiving zone. We draw a little loop, but it doesn't have to be a loop. That's just kind of symbolizing that delay. So there are literally tons of different options here, and don't feel, try not to let your players feel, if they do feel this way, you got to explain it to them. Don't make them feel like they're locked in to the textbook version of this, because if you do, then as soon as the textbook version doesn't work, which it won't work textbook most of the time. If you get a textbook regroup or a textbook breakout, great, so be it. But most of the time, they're going to have to make some sort of adjustment along the way. And if they don't understand that they're allowed to make those adjustments, then it will just be a broken play constantly, and they won't know how to react to it. Okay, so the F1 and the F2, as long as they're swinging low, that's great. And then we got to get the F3 as providing some depth to the those passing options there. And that pretty much covered it. I mean, that's most of the questions that we have. What if the pass still hasn't come? And so the very first thing I'm going to say, just to kind of reiterate, this is a couple passes, 1 or 2 passes, and then you got to be moving it up ice. I don't want D to D to D to D. Okay, it's got to be 1 or 2 passes, and you're up ice with speed. You catch the team on a quick transition, and you're back in the offensive zone explosively with speed. Okay, and then if it does go D to D, no problem. Okay, if it goes D to D, then this guy's looking for a good passing angle from his side, and depending on which way the forwards swing, okay, from this defenseman, it'll be somewhere here or here. Sometimes, depending on if he's a little more to the middle, sometimes this can be an option as well. But if the puck is on this side, then you're going cross ice here. And if the F3 is swinging this direction, then this will not be an option. This is a suicide pass. Don't feed a player to you if you're slightly behind him, because that's just looking for for their team's defenseman to step up and make a hit here. So that's pretty much what you're looking at. So never do that pass, but this pass is a good option. This pass is a good option, and this pass is a good option. And then obviously you've got the short pass as well. And then from there, this guy's got depending on which way they're swinging, but you could go from receiving zone 1 to 2 and then attack, or sometimes it goes 1 to 2, and then depending on which way F3 is swinging, can hit 3 as well, and a little tic-tac-toe there. So that's pretty much it. Just kind of a reiteration on a few concepts that I think, hopefully that clears up some of the questions that have been going on. Just want to say thanks for watching, and if you found this video useful, make sure you like and share it on YouTube, or post it on Facebook, whatever. And if this type of material is helpful for you, then make sure you're definitely going to want to check out our coaches training course. It's free, and I'll put the link again in the description for that. And it's got lots of stuff like this and stuff that will help you to pick a few systems and strategies that you'll be able to use with your teams.